hopefully I've grown past some of those things, you know, self-inflicted, a lot of it. Nowadays I'm...
By the time Stevie Ray Vaughan released Texas Flood, the world was convinced he had everything. A career catching fire, a sound nobody could touch. But at home, his wife Lenny was living a completely different reality. She had watched the man she married slowly become someone unrecognizable. And when she finally had enough, she walked away. After Stevie's death, Lenny confirmed exactly why. What she shared wasn't just about heartbreak. It was about secrets, betrayal, and a moment that cut so deep, Stevie himself could never forget it. The childhood that almost broke him. Stevie Ray Vaughan's father wasn't called Big Jim for nothing. A former Navy man with a hard edge and a reputation for toughness, he seemed larger than life. His youngest son, on the other hand...
It's probably the strongest one that I know of there.
Could not have been more different. Born on October 3, 1954, in Dallas, Texas, Stevie arrived 2 weeks late and weighed just 3.5 pounds. From the very beginning, he was small, quiet, and sensitive. While Big Jim carried himself with confidence and brute strength, Stevie often seemed fragile by comparison. Life at home could be difficult. Big Jim spent his days doing exhausting physical labor, and by the time he returned home to his wife Martha and their 2 sons, he was often in a bad mood. To cope with the pressures of work and what was likely lingering trauma from his service during World War II, he turned to alcohol. Unfortunately, those struggles frequently spilled over into family life, creating an atmosphere of fear that left a lasting mark on Stevie.
Hot band from there, you know, or pick and choose from several, which is what basically Antones does now.
It was a lesson about alcohol that he learned far too early. At just 6 years old, Stevie would sometimes mix drinks whenever his parents left the house. To him, it seemed grown up and exciting. The neighborhood kids thought it was impressive too. What looked like harmless childhood curiosity, however, would later grow into a battle that nearly destroyed him. Yet even in the middle of those hardships, there was one thing that consistently brought light into the Vaughan household: music. Both of Stevie's parents loved music, and it quickly became clear that their sons had inherited a remarkable gift. Stevie especially looked up to his older brother, Jimmy. What began as simple admiration soon turned into an obsession. By the age of 7, Stevie had his own guitar, and from that point on, it was rarely out of his hands. Their mother often found the brothers asleep at night, with their guitars resting beside them, as if they were treasured companions. Music was more than a hobby for the Vaughan boys. It was a way of life. But as the years passed, tensions at home grew. By the time Jimmy was 16, his rock and roll lifestyle had created so much conflict that he decided to leave home. For 13-year-old Stevie, it was a devastating loss. His favorite musical partner was suddenly gone. The guitars that once filled the house with excitement now reminded him of how much he missed his brother. Hoping to please his parents and avoid more family conflict, Stevie decided to put music aside for a while and get a regular job. At first, it seemed like a responsible choice. His parents were thrilled to see him working at a local burger restaurant. For the first time, it looked like Stevie might be heading toward a stable future. Then, everything changed in an instant. One day, while taking out the trash, Stevie lost his footing and fell roughly 10 feet. He crashed onto a large barrel filled with scorching, hot grease. It was the kind of accident that could have easily killed him. Remarkably, he escaped serious injury. He landed on the lid, cracking it, but avoiding the boiling grease inside. While Stevie was shaken and lucky to be alive, His boss was reportedly more concerned about the damaged cover than his condition. That was enough for him. Furious, Stevie quit immediately and headed home. Once there, he put on an Albert King record and turned the volume all the way up. As the music filled the room, he made a decision that would alter the course of his life. After that terrifying accident, Stevie vowed he would never spend his life doing work that left him miserable. From that day forward, he would dedicate himself completely to the guitar. He wanted to play with the power and soul of Albert King, no matter what it took. It was a promise he kept. More than 4 decades later, that determined teenager from Dallas had become one of the most influential guitarists in music history. During his induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, guitarist John Mayer, who once described himself as a Stevie Ray Vaughan admirer, captured his legacy perfectly. According to Mayer, Vaughan's sound combined the otherworldly spirit of Jimi Hendrix, the fiery intensity of Albert King, and the razor-sharp precision of his older brother, Jimmy. Together, those influences helped create a style that was unmistakably Stevie Ray Vaughan. The dangerous road to greatness. By the time Stevie Ray Vaughan reached his teenage years, it was becoming clear that he wasn't just another kid with big dreams. He had the talent to back them up. One of the earliest signs came when he auditioned for a local band called Southern Distributor at just 14 years old. The members wanted to see what the young guitarist was really made of, so they handed him one of the toughest challenges they could think of. Jeff Beck's blisteringly fast instrumental, Jeff's Boogie. What happened next left a lasting impression. Instead of struggling through it, Stevie tore through the song with astonishing precision and confidence. Every note landed exactly where it should. By the end of the audition, nobody in the room was looking at him like a kid anymore. Word quickly began spreading around Dallas that there was a young guitarist on the scene who could do things most grown musicians couldn't. Still, raw talent alone wasn't enough. Stevie had to earn his place the hard way. That meant spending night after night performing at the Cellar, one of Dallas's roughest clubs. The venue attracted an unpredictable mix of bikers, hippies, drifters, and troublemakers. It was loud, chaotic, and often dangerous. Yet for a young musician, it offered something priceless: complete freedom. On stage, Stevie could play whatever inspired him. He experimented, pushed boundaries, and sharpened his skills in front of crowds that demanded authenticity. His girlfriend, Glenda, was often nearby, dancing beside the stage while the music thundered through the room. But the Cellar came with serious risks. If audience members didn't like what they heard, they didn't always settle for boos or insults. Stories from the club described patrons firing live rounds toward the stage. It was the kind of place where performers learned very quickly how to handle pressure. Stevie's response was surprisingly simple. If trouble started, he ducked and kept playing. It was hardly a normal life for a 16-year-old. Away from the stage, things weren't much easier. Stevie looked nothing like the average high school student. With his long hair, flashy clothes, and growing involvement in the nightlife scene, he stood out everywhere he went. He often struggled to stay awake in class, exhausted from late nights, and increasingly influenced by the substances that circulated through the clubs where he performed. At home, the tension continued to build. His parents were deeply worried that he was heading down the same path as his older brother, Jimmy. Arguments became more frequent, and the gap between Stevie's ambitions and his family's expectations grew wider with each passing year. Eventually, everything erupted. One day, during a confrontation at home, Stevie's father stormed into his room and physically attacked him. The incident left visible injuries. When a classmate later asked about the bandage on his ear, Stevie explained that his father had struck him because he feared his son was becoming too much like Jimmy. Yet even moments like that failed to shake his determination. Deep down, Stevie believed his future was waiting somewhere beyond Dallas. He was convinced that if he kept playing, people would eventually recognize what he could do. As it turned out, that moment wasn't far away. The same teenager who had once idolized blues legends was now sharing stages with them. As he became a fixture in the Austin music scene, Stevie found himself performing alongside musicians he had grown up listening to, including Buddy Guy, Jimmy Rogers, and Lightnin' Hopkins. These weren't distant heroes anymore. They were fellow musicians, trading songs and ideas with him night after night. His reputation continued to grow. By 1977, his band had earned enough recognition to be named Band of the Year by the Austin Sun. But the success brought new complications. By 1978, Stevie's life was moving faster than ever. His career was gaining momentum, opportunities were multiplying, and his personal life was becoming increasingly complicated. At the same time, his drug use was escalating. Friends and biographers would later describe a pattern of excess that made it difficult for him to walk away once substances were involved. The same drive that fueled his musical greatness was beginning to push him toward dangerous territory. Around this time, another major chapter entered his life. Lenora Bailey, known to friends as Lenny, immediately caught his attention. She was striking, adventurous, and impossible to ignore. There was just one problem. She was already involved with Dallas musician Diamond Joe Siddons. The situation quickly became messy. At the time, Stevie and Siddons were actually friendly. Vaughan often shared guitar advice with him, helping him improve his playing. But before long, Stevie's connection with Lenny grew stronger, eventually leading her away from Siddons and into a relationship with him. The fallout was bitter. Siddons reportedly took the betrayal hard and never fully forgave it. At first glance, it may have seemed like Stevie had gotten everything he wanted. His career was taking off, his confidence was growing, and he had won the affection of the woman he desired. But beneath the surface, cracks were already beginning to form. The chaos surrounding his personal life and his increasingly destructive habits hinted at a difficult road ahead. When success met self-destruction. By the middle of 1978, Stevie Ray Vaughan had finally found the band that would define his career. Double Trouble was officially born. With Chris Layton behind the drums, Tommy Shannon on bass, and Vaughan handling guitar and vocals, the trio quickly built a reputation as one of the most electrifying blues rock acts in Texas. Night after night, they delivered performances packed with power, precision, and raw emotion. Their talent was undeniable. Their momentum was growing, and for the first time, it felt like national success might be within reach. But just as things were starting to come together, trouble arrived. After one show in Houston, Vaughan made a mistake that would follow him for years. While relaxing backstage, he openly used cocaine near an uncovered window, completely unaware that someone was watching from outside. As luck would have it, that someone was an off-duty police officer. The arrest came quickly. Vaughan was charged with felony possession, turning what should have been another successful night into a serious legal crisis. The timing made the situation even more striking. Earlier that evening, Double Trouble had opened for blues legend Muddy Waters. After witnessing both Vaughan's incredible talent and his dangerous habits, Waters reportedly delivered a warning that would prove remarkably prophetic. He believed Stevie possessed the potential to become one of the greatest guitarists who ever lived, but feared his drug use would prevent him from living long enough to fulfill that promise. Fortunately for Vaughan, the legal consequences could have been much worse. He received 2 years of probation, restrictions on traveling outside Texas, and a court order requiring rehabilitation and distance from negative influences. It was the kind of second chance many people never get. But instead of treating it as a wake-up call, Vaughan largely ignored it. He skipped rehab altogether. Rather than confronting his addiction, he simply became more careful about hiding it. One of his solutions was refusing hotel housekeeping services, reducing the chances of anyone discovering evidence of his drug use. The tragedy was that, despite his growing fame, Stevie was still wrestling with many of the insecurities he had carried since childhood. The success, the applause, and the recognition never seemed to fully silence the emptiness he felt inside. As his addictions deepened, he began searching for stability elsewhere. At one point, he reached out to a former girlfriend. On another occasion, he reportedly proposed marriage to a friend during a late-night convenience store run. It was clear he was looking for something that could anchor him. Then came a dream that changed everything. One night, Vaughan dreamed about blues legend Howlin' Wolf and Lenora Bailey, the woman who had recently entered his life. When he woke up, he felt an overwhelming certainty that she was the person he wanted to marry. The wedding itself reflected the unpredictable nature of their lives. Nothing was planned in a traditional way. Invitations were made over the phone at the last minute. Lenora borrowed a blouse from the photographer. Their wedding rings were fashioned from scraps of wire. Yet during a performance at Austin's Rome Inn, Stevie and Lenny exchanged vows in front of friends and fellow musicians. It was unconventional, chaotic, and perfectly suited to the world they lived in. For a brief moment, everything seemed to be falling into place. He was married, Double Trouble was gaining attention, and in 1982 the band received an invitation to perform at the prestigious Montreux Jazz Festival. For musicians from Texas, it was an opportunity unlike any they had ever experienced. The performance became a turning point. Stevie attacked the stage with such intensity that audiences and critics couldn't ignore him. His guitar work was explosive, emotional, and completely original. The set introduced him to an international audience and instantly elevated his profile within the music industry. Among those paying attention was David Bowie. Impressed by Vaughan's performance, Bowie invited him to contribute to his upcoming album, Let's Dance. It was an unexpected partnership, but an incredibly successful one. Vaughan's guitar work appeared throughout much of the album, helping shape the sound of what would become one of Bowie's biggest commercial successes. Even so, Vaughan remained characteristically humble, later downplaying his contribution and crediting much of his playing to the influence of Albert King. Bowie was so impressed that he invited Vaughan to join the accompanying world tour. At first, it seemed like the opportunity of a lifetime. But behind the scenes, tensions were already building. Lenny frequently attended rehearsals, something Vaughan welcomed. Others within Bowie's camp were less enthusiastic. Personal conflicts, creative disagreements, and growing resentment created an increasingly uncomfortable atmosphere. Matters became worse when Bowie eventually barred Lenny from rehearsals altogether. The relationship between Vaughan and Bowie's organization continued to deteriorate. Despite playing a major role in shaping the sound of Let's Dance, Vaughan felt increasingly sidelined. He was reportedly discouraged from promoting Double Trouble during interviews, and his compensation failed to reflect the importance of his contributions. Eventually, he reached his breaking point. Just one day before the tour was scheduled to begin, Stevie Ray Vaughan walked away. It was a bold decision. Many musicians would have sacrificed almost anything for a chance to tour with David Bowie. Vaughan chose instead to bet on himself and on Double Trouble. The move helped establish his image as an independent artist, unwilling to compromise his identity, regardless of how powerful the opportunity appeared. Still, the experience left its mark. When the Let's Dance music video was released, Vaughan was reportedly frustrated by seeing Bowie mime guitar parts that Stevie had actually performed on the record. The disappointment lingered, and for a time, it dampened his enthusiasm for playing. Fortunately, another opportunity soon emerged. Among those who had seen Double Trouble's unforgettable Montreux performance was musician Jackson Browne. Impressed by what he heard, Browne offered the band free access to his personal recording studio. They wasted no time. Fueled by confidence and urgency, Double Trouble entered the studio and recorded an album in just 2 days. The buzz generated by Montreux, combined with Vaughan's recent work alongside Bowie, created enormous interest around the project. Before long, a major record label came calling. After years of grinding through bars, clubs, and endless miles on Texas highways, Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble finally stood on the edge of a breakthrough. Their debut album was about to arrive, and it would change everything. After his death, Stevie Ray Vaughan's ex-wife confirms why she divorced him. As it turned out, Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble did not need David Bowie to make their mark. In 1983, the band's debut album, Texas Flood, exploded onto the music scene. The record eventually went gold and played a major role in bringing blues music back into the mainstream at a time when synthesizers and new wave sounds dominated the charts. For many listeners, it was a reminder that raw guitar-driven music still had plenty to say. Professionally, Vaughan was finally reaching the heights he had dreamed about for years. Personally, however, his life was becoming increasingly unstable. Ironically, Texas Flood reflected how important his wife, Lenora "Lenny" Vaughan, was to him. The album opened with a song inspired by her and closed with another. On the surface, it seemed like a celebration of their relationship. Behind the scenes, though, the marriage was already beginning to crack. Vaughan often expressed affection in ways that revealed just how deeply addiction had taken hold of his life. According to Lenny, gifts rarely came in traditional forms. Instead of saving money or building a future together, much of their income disappeared into drugs and alcohol. Whenever the idea of financial responsibility came up, arguments were never far behind. Those tensions only grew as Vaughan's success increased. One incident became particularly revealing. According to his longtime manager, Chelsea Milliken, Vaughan received one of his first major royalty checks, worth $5,000. It should have been a moment of celebration, proof that years of sacrifice were finally paying off. Instead, the money quickly vanished, adding another layer of strain to an already troubled marriage. Milliken later admitted that he worried Lenny was not always looking out for Vaughan's best interests. The warning, however, came at a time when Stevie was struggling to listen to anyone. Life on the road only made matters worse. Long tours created distance, suspicion, and constant temptation. Rumors of infidelity followed Vaughan throughout much of his career, giving Lenny plenty of reasons to question whether he was being faithful. Then came a phone call that would haunt him for years. While touring in Norway, Vaughan was staying in a hotel room with another woman when the telephone rang. The woman answered. Moments later, shouting erupted from the receiver. Stevie grabbed the phone and found himself listening to an enraged Lenny on the other end. What she told him next shocked him to his core. The conversation left a wound that never fully healed. No matter how much he drank or how many drugs he consumed, those words stayed with him. The nightmare before the tragedy. By the mid-1980s, Vaughan's addictions had spiraled completely out of control. At his worst, he was reportedly consuming enormous amounts of alcohol and cocaine every day. The lifestyle that had once seemed exciting was now destroying him physically, emotionally, and creatively. His body was beginning to fail under the strain. Touring was exhausting enough for healthy musicians. For Stevie, it was becoming a battle for survival. That battle finally reached a breaking point in September 1986. Following a major performance in Germany, Vaughan suddenly became gravely ill. His skin turned pale and clammy. He began vomiting blood. Those around him watched in horror as the energetic performer they knew seemed to disappear before their eyes. One bandmate later recalled that Vaughan looked completely empty, as though every ounce of life had drained from him. For perhaps the first time in years, Stevie stopped pretending everything was under control. Weak and frightened, he admitted that he needed help. The response was immediate. Medical personnel rushed to his aid, and what followed became one of the most important turning points of his life. The terrifying health crisis forced him to confront a reality he had spent years avoiding. If he continued down the same path, he might not survive. This time, the message finally got through. Vaughan committed himself to sobriety, and, unlike previous attempts, he stayed the course. The road back was difficult. In many ways, he had to relearn how to live. More intimidating still, he had to relearn how to perform. For years, alcohol and drugs had been woven into nearly every aspect of his career. The thought of stepping on stage sober was genuinely frightening, but slowly, his confidence returned. That transformation became the foundation for Double Trouble's 1989 album, In Step. The title itself was a reference to the 12-step recovery program that had helped change his life. More than just a collection of songs, the album reflected a man fighting his way back from the edge. The effort paid off. In Step became Vaughan's biggest commercial success and earned him his first Grammy Award. For the first time in years, nearly every area of his life seemed to be improving. His divorce from Lenny was finalized, bringing closure to a painful chapter. He had also found a new relationship that brought him happiness and stability. After years of chaos, it finally appeared that Stevie Ray Vaughan had found peace. As he toured in support of In Step, he openly discussed his struggles with addiction, hoping others could learn from his experiences. Audiences weren't just seeing one of the greatest guitar players of his generation. They were watching someone who had survived battles that once seemed impossible to overcome. It felt like the beginning of a new chapter, but fate had one final twist waiting. On August 26, 1990, everything changed. In the final days of his life, Stevie Ray Vaughan shared something unsettling with those closest to him. He told his bandmates about a vivid nightmare he had experienced the night before. In the dream, he attended his own funeral, surrounded by thousands of mourners. It was the kind of dream that lingers long after waking up, impossible to shake and difficult to forget. At the time, it seemed like nothing more than a disturbing coincidence. The next day, Vaughan stood on one of the biggest stages of his career. A crowd of 40,000 fans packed an outdoor venue near Milwaukee, eager to witness an unforgettable night of music. As the concert reached its finale, Vaughan joined an extraordinary lineup of guitar legends. Standing beside Eric Clapton, Robert Cray, Buddy Guy, and his brother Jimmy Vaughan, he took part in a once-in-a-lifetime jam session that felt like a celebration of everything he had worked for. For a musician who had battled addiction, survived personal turmoil, and fought his way back from the brink, it seemed like the perfect moment, a triumphant chapter in a remarkable comeback story. Tragically, it would be one of his last. After the show ended, the performers faced a familiar problem. The venue was located in a beautiful countryside resort surrounded by rolling hills, a golf course, and ski slopes. It was scenic, but there was only one road leading in and out of the property. Once thousands of fans started leaving, traffic became nearly impossible. To avoid the congestion, helicopters had been arranged to transport several members of the touring party. Shortly after the concert, Vaughan and others headed toward 4 waiting helicopters. A light fog had begun settling over the area, but nothing appeared especially alarming. The flights were expected to be short and routine. Then something went terribly wrong. The 3rd helicopter to depart, carrying Vaughan and 3 others, never reached its destination. Less than a mile from the takeoff point, the aircraft crashed into a nearby ski slope. The impact scattered debris across a wide area and killed everyone on board instantly. There was no dramatic explosion and no warning signal. One moment, the helicopter was airborne, and the next, it was gone. Even more chilling was the fact that the passengers aboard the other helicopters had no idea a crash had occurred. They continued their flights, unaware that tragedy had struck, until Vaughan's aircraft failed to arrive. Stevie Ray Vaughan was just 35 years old. After years of addiction and self-destruction, he had finally found sobriety. His career was thriving, his confidence had returned, and many believed his best years were still ahead of him. That made the loss feel especially cruel. He had survived the battles that seemed most likely to kill him, only to lose his life in a tragic accident. In the days that followed, the nightmare he had described to his bandmates seemed eerily prophetic. More than 1,500 people filled the church for his funeral, while thousands more gathered outside. The crowd included some of the biggest names in music. Eric Clapton, Stevie Wonder, Buddy Guy, ZZ Top, Bonnie Raitt, and Jackson Browne were among those who came to pay their respects. Yet as the shock faded, questions began to emerge. Vaughan's mother, Martha, and his brother, Jimmy, wanted answers. Believing mistakes may have contributed to the crash, they filed a lawsuit against the helicopter company. The family argued that the pilot was not properly qualified for the conditions he encountered and that poor decisions had led to the disaster. The legal battle stretched on for 5 years before eventually ending in an out-of-court settlement.